Hey, this is Dr. Robert Peters, folks. I'm Chief Academic Officer with National Dropout Prevention Center and Successful Practices Network. Okay, you guys have been with us. I mean, we've been doing this for about the last couple of weeks. Really, a series on future focus schools for all children. Folks, we started in Cincinnati talking about artificial intelligence, right? And what are some really cool artificial intelligence lessons for students? After that, we went all the way out to California, talked to Dr. Mike McCormick, really talking specifically about building a system-wide culture for future focus schools. Went down to LA Unified, folks. We went to Tennessee. We've gone out to Hermiston, and we are back in Tennessee. This specific series talking about future focus schools and strategies for high school students. As we know, secondary is a beast, right? And we know that, as we begin to plan for secondary schools, we really have got to look at the strategies and what strategies are extremely important and engage secondary students. And I've got an amazing secondary teacher. All right. He's out of Knoxville, Tennessee, and Clayton-Bradley. Scott, why don't you introduce yourself, man, before I ask you that first question, brother?
Sure. Hi, my name's Scott Hussey. I teach at Clayton-Bradley Academy. I'm a high school. Okay, so I would tell the shorthand is I'm an English teacher, but that's not right.
Okay.
I teach living, breathing teenagers how to think about both their culture, our society, other cultures, and then how to communicate those ideas. So I do that through a class called English.
That's it.
Right?
I love it.
But English is antiquated for what I really do.
I love that. You see, we're starting our first thing is, first of all, you got to understand that, listen, English is just what you guys think. But what Scott does is he brings so many different pieces in for students, right? And our first question really revolves around that, Scott. As we're thinking about, like right now, man, there are a lot of secondary teachers that they're like, listen, what can I really begin to put in my lessons that are future focused strategies for students, man? As we begin to think, as you begin to plan the work and as you facilitate the work, man, what are some pieces, those characteristics that you always make sure that you include as you're prepping and planning for a future focused lesson?
So I want to make sure my students are talking to each other and not to me. I really dislike the idea of, where the teacher kind of is the hub, where everything comes in, I put a grade on it, and then it goes back to the individual student with none of this peer-to-peer interaction. I want to make sure that in my classroom, when we're discussing a novel, it is not my ideas because, I have particular cultural backgrounds and my age, right? And all those sort of things. Right. So when I assign a text, it's more important to see what they're getting from it, right? So when I make it a reading assignment, I start a question, I'll start the class, and then I let go. Mm-hmm. And if whatever point that they get to in the text is authentic to them. Right. Will they miss the metaphor that I'm looking for? Sure, they may miss it. Some classes will get it, others won't. And then they'll also teach me items about the text every year. I mean, so I might do the same book a couple years in a row, but through the dynamic of students talking to each other and their understanding of the world, I get a new perspective. So, and as far as being future focused, the world is not a place where I get to just take a test, submit the test, and get the answers back, and congratulations, I get my reward. I have to work with people, right? And I have to deal with ideas that I might not fully agree with or they don't make sense to me. And I have to somehow either incorporate them into my view, right? Or at least understand how they exist in the world, right? And so what I like to do is my classroom, everything's faced in a circular way. So I have I have actually one large table in my room for classroom discussion. So, and I sit at that table, right? I don't stand up. I'm not separate. The students see classroom horizontally, and too often teachers see classrooms vertically. Right. And I want to make sure that I'm at the same plane as them, because the only difference that I have on them is age. Right? It's not intelligence. There's plenty of students in the room who are way more intelligent than I am. And I just have experience. Right. But my experience comes from a particular place in time. And that's somewhat dated at this point. So how do I get it from a teenager that spent most of his life or her life more online, right?
Right. Right.
And and I need to see that world rather than the world that I was given from, my community, my parents, my society, my church, and all that. And so that's one aspect of future focus that I really try to work on. And then the other is the interpersonal skills between each other.
Right.
Right? They need to be able to share their work openly and honestly, right? And evaluate each other, right?
Right.
And so what I do a lot of is whenever I have any writing assignments, it needs to be peer edited at least twice before it even comes to me.
Right.
Right. So that they understand like the rubric. How would I grade it? Well, the only way they can understand the rubric is not by just reading what I gave them, but by grading both themselves and others. Right.
Exactly.
And so that
Exactly.
allows them to set up the goals and set up like a better understanding of where they are without it being reduced to some statistic of a test score.
Definitely. I love it, man. Scott, I mean, there's so many different parallels that what you said in the McKinsey study. I mean, you click on it. It's right there in a link, the McKinsey study. And it really revolves around those skills that our children need as these future focused skills that they're going to need, right? As they work into a future of careers. A lot of things that you said really revolved around those soft skills, right? And just being inside your class, man, it's almost like I envision like this Socratic seminaring session, right? Where the students are like in a circle and you guys are really just talking through the information. I'm hearing things like peer edits. I'm hearing things like, student ownership in their own learning. And I'm hearing this. I'm hearing the students in your class doing more talking than the teachers. And in most classes we see across the country, the teachers are doing most of the talking. And then after that, they say, hey, does everyone get it? And then the students work for the rest of the period, right?
Right.
But in your classroom, man, I'm seeing this collaboration, soft skills, children understanding that, maybe what I think about this, I can learn from you. And then as a teacher, I'm hearing these pieces where you're like, I'm learning from the students just as much as they're learning from me, right?
Of course, yeah.
So it's this piece where the teacher, I don't always have to be right about this. These are some pieces that I think, these are some pieces I want to teach you, but then we're learning through this process together,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
definitely, definitely. And as we begin to really think through these future focused skills, man, I just hear so many of those skills from the McKinsey study in your classroom. Folks, if you want to get connected, not if, when you are in the Knoxville area, man, there is this place called Clayton-Bradley. You have got to go to it. Knock on the door, say, I got to talk to Scott because I really want to talk and get these great skills. They're doing some amazing work there. If you want any additional strategies, folks, please be a part of our family. Follow us. We want to make sure that as you're going through, that you're going through this journey with us. We're in Tennessee, folks. We're going to be in Ohio, Scott. We're going to be just in the next couple of weeks, man. We're going to be back out to Oregon, man. Then we're going to be down in Florida. We are traveling the country virtually to get some of the best strategies across the country, future focus schools for all children. And that's big A, big L, big L, all children. Scott, thanks, man, for being a part of the vodcast today, man.
Of course.
And man, thank you for all the great work you're doing over at Clayton-Bradley. Okay.